Good afternoon and welcome back to the Health Leaders The Winning Edge program, a series of webinars touching on the topics and strategies that you need to know most. My name is Jay Asser. I am the CEO editor for Health Leaders and will serve as your moderator for this session. Today's webinar is titled The Winning Edge for Enterprise Transformation Leadership. Thank you to you and our audience for participating. Before we get started, for those of you participating in the live program, I just have a few housekeeping details to go over. Note that an on-demand version of this program will be available on our YouTube channel on Friday and can be accessed through our website at healthleadersmedia.com. To ensure that you can see all the content for the event, please maximize your event window and be sure to adjust your computer volume settings and/or PC speakers for optimal sound quality. Next, you will find a resources list for today's webinar on the upper right of your screen. Here, we have listed the webinar slide deck and some additional materials for you to download. At the bottom of your console are multiple widgets you can use. To submit a question, click on the Q&A widget. It may be open already and appear on the left side of your screen. You may submit questions at any time during the presentation. However, please note that it is likely that your questions will not be answered until the Q&A portion of the program. Finally, should you experience any technical difficulties during today's program and need assistance, please click on the Help widget, which has a question mark icon and covers common technical issues. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our featured panelists for today's discussion. Welcome to Meeta Gandhi, COO of Orlando Health, Melbourne Hospital, East Region, and Diana Richardson, President and CEO of Merrimack Health. Thank you for both joining us today. Can you please tell me a little bit more about yourselves and your organizations? Meeta, please.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Meeta Gandhi. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Orlando Health Melbourne Hospital, located on Florida's Space Coast. I joined Orlando Health a little over a year ago, relocating from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I was an operational leader within a large health system. So relocating to Florida has helped me really gain more leadership skills as I've helped during a period of significant change. And it's also given me a unique perspective on transformation culture and the importance of building trust through transitions. Orlando Health is a nonprofit healthcare system with 26 hospitals across Florida, Alabama, and Puerto Rico. So again, I serve in our East region, which includes my facility, which is Orlando Health Melbourne Hospital. We also have Orlando Health Sebastian River Hospital and our future Orlando Health Vieira Hospital, which is currently under development. So it's been a very exciting time for our organization. We've spent the last few years with many hospital integrations throughout the system, and we continue to advance quality, safety, and the patient experience. Did want to call out that most recently Melbourne Hospital was designated as Brevard County's first primary Florida Resuscitation Center of Excellence and has also earned its 6th consecutive Leapfrog A for patient safety. So definitely a lot to be proud of. And I really look forward to sharing some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Meeta. And Diana, could you please tell us a little bit about Merrimack Health?
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you, Jay. So as Jay mentioned, I am the President and CEO of Merrimack Health, which you may or may not have heard of because we are actually Massachusetts' newest health system. We formed as a health system really on October 1st, 2024, when a standalone community hospital, Lawrence General Hospital, acquired 2 of the Steward hospitals that were going bankrupt here in Massachusetts, Holy Family Hospital in Haverhill and Holy Family Hospital in Methuen, and then formed first a system at that point, rebranded in September of 25 to Merrimack Health. So we have been in existence as Merrimack Health for just about 9 months now, so definitely a newer system. But building on a long history of being the community hospital provider in this region of Massachusetts. We are in the, if you're familiar with Massachusetts, we're in the kind of northeast corridor there, surrounded by several highways, and really are now the only regional provider of healthcare in the Merrimack Valley. My own personal history, a longtime hospital healthcare administrator in multiple organizations, most recently, prior to joining here, at Tufts Medical Center in Boston. I actually left there and joined the Incident Command Response from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as the Steward hospitals were going bankrupt, and actually worked on the state side of the equation, looking at the transformation of healthcare as that system was failing here in our state. And after that, joined the organization here at Merrimack Health, first as interim and now permanent CEO and president. So in terms of transformation, we've really transformed in every way, both becoming a system from being a community hospital, but also in terms of merging and doing system integration internally. At the same time, we're now looking at being an external regional provider. So lots of transformation going on with our teams.
Great. Thank you, Diana. And thank you both again for joining us today for a topic that we know is both timely and vital to executive leadership right now in the current climate. The reality is, if you're a hospital and you aren't evolving, you risk being left behind. But the challenge for hospital leaders right now is figuring out how to make that change work at scale. So enterprise transformation is no longer optional, but its success depends on whether executives can align on priorities and create a clear vision for change. So with that said, I want to start us off by asking, what differentiates true enterprise transformation from incremental improvements right now? Meeta, could you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So really thinking about this question, when I think about transformation and really successful transformations, it starts with the people. Less focus on project work and more on the people. Incremental improvement really focuses on existing processes and how we're going to make those processes better, but transformational change really addresses how the organization operates fundamentally. And so when you think about sustainable transformation, we have to make sure that leadership is united around a common vision, that we all have a commitment to the culture that we're trying to build, and also taking that back a layer, and something that was very relatable to when I came to this organization in this facility. We have to make sure that we have the right leaders in place to drive these cultural shifts and drive transformation. So, after the post-acquisition, again, it wasn't just about, hey, of course, systems and processes, all of those things are important, but we had to start with, building that trust, making sure we were aligned, making sure that our team, our leaders knew the expectations. We also had, a shared vision, so that everyone knew what we were working towards very clearly. And we had to make sure we were communicating that very well to our teams, again, so they could have a sense of pride in what we were working towards together. It can be a little rocky sometimes post-acquisition, right? There's a lot of change. It directly impacts our frontline team. So making sure that they understood what we were working towards together was very important. Again, the focus isn't just temporary changes with improvement initiatives, but that sustainability. And it really, to the core of that, it's really driven by our leaders in partnership with our frontline team.
And Diana, from your perspective, how would you characterize this true enterprise transformation?
So I think it's a little bit of a trick question, and let me tell you why. Because I don't necessarily think they're comparable. I think you need both. You can't have a 5-course meal that is an amazing gourmet dining experience without having a bunch of really good recipes and really good components underneath that. So when you think about what is transformational change really moves you towards accomplishing the long-term goals of your organization to care for your patients and community. But the way you get there is often through a series of well thought out, well communicated incremental changes. I'm not sure it's an either or. I think you actually need both, and you can't really have an effective transformation without well thought out incremental changes to move you towards that. Rarely do you build a new hospital overnight. Rarely do you become a system overnight and have everything be perfect. It often is a series of step-by-step changes and processes and people and alignment and communications that have to happen to really accomplish that transformational change.
Fair enough. Wasn't trying to trick you, but I can see how that could be a trick question. One of the things you just mentioned, alignment. Let's talk a little bit about that. How do you align leaders within your organization right now along with a common vision for transformation, especially when you're dealing with silos and differentiating competing priorities between departments? How do you create that real alignment between everybody in the organization? Diana, could you start us off on this one?
Yeah, I think it's really about keeping it simple and clear. What are the organization's priorities? So in our organization, we talk about this in almost every single meeting, in every single setting. Our priorities are really simple. We are going to start with what do our patients and communities need to receive the highest possible care in our facilities. So that includes the quality of care, that includes access, that includes providing services that we don't currently provide. It includes providing services in different locations that we may or may not provide today. So it's really always starting with patients and communities. So every conversation we have when we have competing priorities, we always bring it back to what do we need to do that's best for the patients and our community. Following that, we have 100% commitment to taking care of the teams that do that work. That work is hard work. It's really hard to do patient care in any kind of setting and time period, but in the world we live in today and some of the contextual pressures in every way, shape, or form, it's hard work. And so caring for the teams that actually do that work has to be a priority, or they can't be there to care for the patients. And lastly, it has to be sustainable. Usually that means financial, not always, but usually. If we're not financially sustainable, we can't really invest in those two things. So we bring every decision, every alignment conflict back to those. Let's start with what's best for the patient. How do we take care of the teams while we do that? And what has to be true to make that financially and long-term sustainable?
And Meeta, is there anything you can add on to what Diana just said?
Very well stated. I definitely agree. Again, one of the things I'll continue to reference, we're always going to have competing priorities in the eyes of our leaders, our team members, and it depends on the day-to-day what we're facing, right? I'll say it again, having the right leadership team has made a monumental difference for us in terms of transformational change and helping with, again, bringing everyone together. It starts with our leaders, right? The other part of that, again, I agree, it's when the patient's at the center, competing priorities become easier to navigate because our focus feels more organic. When we, again, having the right leaders, they can help guide that vision, make sure that, all of that's translated to our front line. We won't maybe always have agreement on every tactic, but at least we're focused on the shared outcomes that we're trying to achieve, which is really important. Additionally, we really try to make sure that everything that we're doing aligns with our system priorities, our system, our imperatives. So everything should, organically fall in line, and we're not marching in a different direction from what our some of our system initiatives are. It just helps with that clarity, what we're trying to accomplish doesn't become a surprise to our team members because they know we're focused on our patients, we're focused on quality and safety, we're focused on the experience. A lot of the times when instead of focusing on multiple metrics, for example, we'll pick some that feel like, all right, if we focus on this one, a lot of other things or priorities may influence others and it'll fall in line. So again, I think Diana mentioned this in terms of just making sure that we're not causing that, lack of clarity, that we're making it as clear as possible. We have a strong example for us has been, one of our biggest safety focuses is on handoffs. And while that sounds so simple, it has so many other implications of, that having a clear focus on safe handoffs can impact patient experience as well, and many other things, teamwork. And so again, just making sure that we're helping set the tone and keeping things clear for our teams has a strong impact.
And where do governance structures come into play here to keep a lot of these initiatives on track? Diana, can you speak to maybe some effective ways where governance plays a big role?
Yeah, I want to really focus on the decision-making processes. We are faced with so many difficult decisions and trade-offs right now in healthcare. It doesn't matter what organization you are in. If you work in a hospital or a health system, you are constantly faced with difficult decisions that are often choosing between the least bad as opposed to choosing the best kind of option. And because those decisions are so hard, I think there's a natural tendency to avoid making them or make it unclear about where those decisions will be made. So, when you think about processes, the best thing that we can do for our teams is to make it clear what decision needs to be made, who's going to be making it. Are you going to know anything different tomorrow than you know today? And if not, then make the decision today. We spend a lot of time pushing things into committees or meetings or, okay, let the committee work on it. And yet the committee doesn't really have the authority to make that decision. When the best thing we could do is say, okay, this decision has to be made within, 2 months because we have to hit a certain regulatory filing time frame. So if we're going to make a service consolidation, we've got to make the decision within 2 months. I want the committee to work through the pros and cons and the different options, but the chief physician is going to make the ultimate decision, or the chief physician and the chief nurse collectively, or maybe the CEO is the one who's going to make the decision. But making it clear for our teams, and also not continuing to discuss when nothing is going to come to light. It's just a tough decision that we don't really want to make. So really pushing those points of who's going to make the decision, when does it need to be made, and are you going to know anything more when you continue to have meetings about it, and if not, actually making the decision. I think that's a lesson that we aren't always so good at in hospital and healthcare administration.
Definitely. Meeta, from your perspective, how have you seen governance really play a large role in keeping these priorities aligned?
Yeah, one of the things, when I saw this question, I think when people hear the word governance, a lot of times they immediately think about committees and meetings. But in terms of effective governance, it's really about making sure that our teams understand our priorities. Again, who owns the work, and also has, making sure they have visibility into the progress. So one of the examples that we have that's really worked, right? And it's almost like local governance a little bit, but we have department Gemba boards throughout the entire facility. Every department has them. We even have one in administration. It really displays the clear goals, metrics, priorities, wins, right? All of that for anybody to have visibility to within the department, or even if you're just walking by. But it really helps show that, hey, we're focused on similar things. It may look different based on which department that you're in, but it shows like, hey, we're all contributing to these shared outcomes. So I think that's been a huge win for us. Again, I do agree with what Diana stated. I think it's, the more clarity you can create around those goals, ownership, That's how you can really pave the way for true transformation.
Great. And now, next, I want to talk a little bit about some of the technology investments that go into transformation. How are you ensuring that these technology investments and implementation of tools are really integrated with the operational and financial goals of your organization? Meeta, can you kick us off here?
Yeah, one of the most important things that we've learned about technology investments is that it cannot happen in isolation. So there really has to be strong collaboration with our leadership, our executive leadership, really advocating for the needs of our team and making sure that we're hearing those needs, that we understand them, but also making sure that we have consistent touch bases with our IT leaders. Again, we want to have those opportunities for all of us to align, provide feedback, make sure that they're aware of, what those needs are and where we need to invest. The other part of that, though, is making sure that we're using technology as a true tool, that we're not overburdening our teams, and that we're focused on, if we implement one, that we're optimizing it, we're spending the time and investing that time, again, to make sure that we're stabilizing workflows, that we're receiving the team's feedback, and not just rushing into the next big thing. Technology can be really exciting, and there's so much out there, but we have to make sure that we're effectively understanding our needs, and that we're implementing them in a way that our teams can use them, and it really helps drive the work. So again, I think it's that continuous look into, hey, is what we have or what we've invested in, have we optimized that? We're doing a lot of that, being almost a year out from converting to Epic. And we actually had a conversation this week that was like, there's a lot of questions still. There's a lot of pieces, within Epic that we're not using that we could use to help the team. There's some, ways that we could make it better. So it's a continuous conversation, a continuous collaboration. But I think making sure that we're all aligned, and collaborating with our IT leaders has been really helpful for us.
And Diana, how have you found integrating technology in your organization?
Yeah, so technology means different things. I think sometimes we say technology, we immediately think IT, but sometimes technology is really the latest and greatest medical equipment as well. So in those scenarios, it really is coming back to that, all right, what's best for the patients and community right now, because there's a million different pieces of medical equipment, all of which are cool and do cool, new, sexy, amazing things. But really starting with is there anything that is absolutely required right now from a safety perspective? And once those needs are met, then how are we actually looking at what our patients and communities need right now and need first? So really grounding in that area. On the IT front, it's complicated, and I think most organizations are, might still call this a journey, because there are so many solutions every day that in kind of bombarding us. And any one of us in a healthcare administration will probably get 20 emails a day from different new AI startups, or we're a new technology company that manages your rev cycle differently, or we can handle your people metrics or your patient experience data differently. And so it's almost alarm fatigue, if you will, from all of the different IT solutions out there. So, really what we are trying to do is bring it back to the basics, like center around, all right, what is our priority as an organization? Have the IT team at the table. What needs to be true for us to implement kind of XYZ initiative that we're doing? So if it's a safety initiative that we have to build into, we happen to have Meditech, we have to build into Meditech and its safety, that's going to be our priority. That's what we want the teams to focus on now. The last piece I would say is it's really listening to those IT professionals. We are aware of lots of great technology solutions out there, but we start to talk about, okay, let's go ahead, talk about this product, let's do a demo, let's bring it into the organization. But until we've talked to our IT team, we don't always understand that, oh, that's not going to work here until we upgrade the wireless infrastructure that's in the walls. And so we tend to focus more on the software side of the house and not the infrastructure side of the house, and making sure that the IT team is at the table early on so that we understand the infrastructure, that it's not it's a plug and play system that we can put in place in 2 months and no investment, it's great. But no, actually, really, for it to work here in our organization, we have to do some other infrastructure improvements and investments first. So back to Meeta's point of really listening, bringing them in, having them be part of the conversations early on, and asking those more in-depth questions when we're considering different technology solutions.
And the next thing I want to ask, of course, ties into a lot of what we just talked about with integrating technology. It's that buy-in you need from your frontline staff and engagement when you are implementing changes and trying to achieve transformation. So what strategies have you found particularly effective with that at your organization? Diana, could you start us here?
Yeah, I think it's true in any organization. You really have to start with the why. It's not effective to come out and just say, okay, we're going to do this, move forward, good luck to you, here's a major change. Really starting with the why. So, for example, we have maternal child health services in 2 of the hospitals. They were previously competing before we came together as a system, and they're less than 2 miles apart. At the same time, the birth rate in Massachusetts is going down, so the volume at both is actually declining a bit. From a safety perspective, from a sustainability standpoint, it makes total sense to consolidate those into one vibrant maternal child health birthing center. And that's a difficult decision when you're talking about, okay, we're going to close a unit at one place, expand a unit at the other place, and really bring 2 teams together. It's emotional, it's hard. It involves doing something that maybe you didn't anticipate. You've been coming to the same workplace for 10 years. Now you might be doing the same work, but it's with a new team and a bigger operation. So really starting with the why, starting with the what's best for patients, again, not to kind of beat a broken record, but it really does help ground our conversations to say, what's best for the patients? Well, what's best for the patients is to have multiple options with all of the safety protections that they need when they're giving birth. Oftentimes that, in fact, most times, that is a wonderful, natural, celebratory experience, but every now and then something doesn't go right, and you need all of the supports around you to make sure that mom and baby are safe. And so offering that to our patients and finding ways to still have the personalized team experience and patient experience, explaining that to the teams, this is what's best for the patient. Now let's talk about how we're going to take care of the teams and make sure your experience as you come to a new workplace is warm and welcoming and where you want to be. And then, by the way, that actually allows us to consolidate some resources, which helps the whole organization be financially sustainable in the long run. So really grounding our conversations in what's the why, start with the patient, take care of the team, and do it in a way that's sustainable.
And Meeta, how would you add on to what Diana said in terms of strategies for getting that buy-in from staff and leaders?
Yeah, for me, I would say ask the team. One thing that's really worked is, and again, the priority would be building that trust, but, how do we get there? It's going directly to our team members, because they're going to tell you exactly, what some of those pain points are, you know, what their needs are, what they're experiencing, what patient feedback has been, you know, some of that patient feedback or even that data that we can't see. And so, you know, I always start there is, you know, and it's not always fun to hear, but, you know, I love to kind of dig and see, all right, what can we do better? What could we invest in? And what's working well as well, because we want to make sure that we keep doing that and keep making those investments in the things that are working well. You know, we talked about technology, and Diana mentioned it's not just IT, it's equipment. Absolutely. You know, we post-acquisition, you know, our team members saw that Orlando Health was investing in so many different things, not just, you know, paint, right? But we were investing in critical equipment needed for patient safety. We upgraded our entire telemetry system. We've done, you know, lots of different pockets of investments that were needed, but of course, it's not like it's a never-ending well, so we have to be very strategic. And so we've created clear pipelines of hearing from our team members, hearing from our leaders, you know, making sure we're building or also bringing in feedback from our community as well. And we make sure that we have well-rounded discussions on what those needs are, but then taking that feedback and what we've discussed together to our team members as well, so that they know, because sometimes it's, you know, it can be frustrating if we're not fulfilling some needs right away, but making sure they understand the timelines. And, you know, we say, hey, this isn't something that we can accomplish right now, but here's what we can do. And here's what a realistic timeline looks like. And I've seen that resonates really well with our front line. So yeah, I think, you know, that as well as maintaining a consistent presence, you know, spending time, not just, you know, with the direct leaders of the department, but again, making sure that you're able to connect with the team directly. Again, that follow-up is critical. How are we making sure that, you know, we're delivering on key questions and things that they need? Like, we're following up and being transparent about those things. And sometimes I keep it real and say, hey, I don't have a timeline right now, but it is something that's important. And as soon as I can get back to you and provide a follow-up to the team, I will. So that's helped. Again, I mentioned Gemba boards. I think that's been a great strategy for us to keep, you know, all of the updates at the forefront and very visible for any of the team. Also, you know, one thing that's worked really well for us is continuing to reinforce the positive changes, because sometimes, you know, if we are making a positive change in one area that isn't directly visible to the larger group, or let's say we make an investment in our physical plant that helps our building run better. You know, our department may not see that, or it's not directly happening there, but it's an investment for the greater good of the entire facility. So making sure that we're sharing those stories very well, very clearly. You know, I think I've seen that resonate, again, very well and go a long way with our team, and they appreciate it. So, yeah, I think, again, just the trust, making sure you have the continuous real feedback and you're following through. That's been very effective for us.
Great. Next, I know we've been talking a lot, and you both have been sharing a lot about what each of your organizations have been doing, but I want to ask a little more specifically, because I know in both cases you've undergone a lot of change over the past year plus, and I think both of your situations are pretty unique in their own way and interesting, so I'd love to hear more about that. Diana, I know Merrimack Health, when it formed, it was on a really accelerated timeline. Things had to come together really quickly, and you had to you know, align and integrate really fast. How did you determine throughout that process what to prioritize first, and where did you see the biggest challenges with alignment during that whole process?
Yeah, so this question makes me laugh a little bit. We didn't necessarily have the luxury of being able to prioritize in a thoughtful way. By way of history, at least in Massachusetts, filed for bankruptcy in May of 24. At that time, there was no clear discussions about what the disposition of any of those hospitals would be. And as I mentioned, the legacy Lawrence General Hospital was a standalone small community hospital. And so discussions about bankruptcy started in May, and on October 1st, the organizations came together of that same year. So there was a lot of things that were not known relative to conditions of the building or what IT systems would look like. There were supports that went away. And this was not a situation where you had an existing multi-hospital system that is now got a regular, well-established playbook that you just, bring another organization on board. This was a standalone hospital that literally has to figure out how to be a system overnight. And so in a situation when you didn't have a lot of the information and you didn't have the ability to learn a lot of the information ahead of time. So in terms of prioritizing, really the most important things were prioritized around what do we have to do to keep caring for patients in a safe way and to keep the team really on board and engaged as we even assessed what the needs were. And the needs were everything from, the obvious, bringing together the electronic medical record to maybe the less obvious that every roof in the place leaked. And we had what we started calling unintended water features throughout the building that we had to really repair, that while it might not have been on our list of a priority for day one, it sure became the priority on day two when we had a rainstorm. So things like that helped really inform the process that we had to be nimble. So I think the first piece and kind of lesson for us was we really had to be nimble. And even if we had a priority today, we couldn't be so wed to it that we couldn't rearrange that priority tomorrow morning when something else was discovered as we learned more and more about those hospitals. In terms of engaging the team, I really want to go back to some of what Meeta was saying about communicating with the teams and engaging the teams. The teams care about providing patient care and doing good work and caring for their communities. And they will tell you what you kind of need to know, and they will help you get things over the finish line to do that work, as long as you're communicating with them, listening with them, being honest with them, being direct with them, giving answers when you can, and if you can't, saying, we don't know, but we're going to work on that and we'll get back to you, and then making sure you get back to them. And really communicating in a constant, consistent, and clear fashion that teams need to know when they're going to hear information. You need to follow through with that kind of say-do ratio. If you say you're going to do it, you need to do it, or you need to be communicating along the lines. So that constant communication was critical to us in the early days for sure, but it continues to be that way. I mean, we are on a journey to really become a true regional system, and that involves constant communication with the teams. So in terms of alignment, I cannot stress that part enough. Really, the communication mattered.
And Meeta, from everything that Orlando Health Hospital has gone through, what have you seen? What lessons have you learned from that organizational transition period?
Where do I begin? I think I keep focusing on the people because it's so real. We can have the best intentions coming into a transformation as significant as the one that we went through. We can make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of our patients, our team members, and the organization. But, our teams have been through a lot, and there may be initial skepticism or fatigue or, uncertainty, right? And so not everyone will initially, receive, decisions in the way that we as leaders intended, during a time like that. And it can be frustrating, but it just means that we have to show up stronger. We cannot stop communicating. We cannot stop listening or showing up. And we have to stay consistent and invest in those relationships. Again, our people are our greatest asset during a transformation. We think about our processes and so many things that, we talked a little bit about incremental change and the steps and all the things that, we have to manage. And all of that is so important. Of course, we have to be very strategic and very, aligned, all the things. But our people ultimately and our culture will determine whether those changes are successful. And so making sure that they feel heard, respected, and connected to the future vision is critical, because they're more willing to commit to times of uncertainty with us. And I've seen that. The beautiful thing about, this facility is, again, our team members went through a lot of change, and being with an organization that went bankrupt, and then, with Orlando Health coming in, they've been through a lot. And, the beautiful thing is that they love this community, right? They have strong relationships and connections with each other. They're a very resilient team, and I'm so proud of that. And so all of that was there. But again, it was just the building of the trust and making sure that they were along, in the journey with us and committed to what we were trying to accomplish. It was really important. So yeah, it takes a lot of time. It's not something that happens in overnight, a month, a couple months. It really takes a lot of time, but it's been very worth it. And investing in our people has been very transformational for us.
So as both of you were helping lead these transformation efforts at your organization, I'm interested what metrics or indicators gave you a better idea of whether some of the efforts were successful or not. I know these specific metrics will be dependent on the type of transformation you're trying to achieve, whether that's workforce related or technology specific. But just in general, I'm just wondering, what are some key indicators that you looked at for determining whether an effort was successful or not? Meeta, could you start us here?
Yeah, sure. So, of course, as senior leaders, we look at the operational, the financial, all of the things. But one of my most favorite, metrics that I love to look at is from our Glint survey, which is our engagement survey that we do twice a year. And it really gives us a pulse check on, how our team members are experiencing the organization. Do they feel connected to the mission and have a sense of pride working here? Do they feel supported by leadership? There's so many different buckets of information that, do they feel like they have the right resources to do their daily work? So I love that one. And that's really helped us because there's enough time in between each survey for us to have valuable feedback and make change. And so I would say for any organization, that's one I highly recommend, especially in a kind of a post-acquisition era. That's been super helpful for us. Of course, we also look closely at retention and turnover. Again, we're trying to create that environment where, we want people to choose this facility to work at, and we want to retain the best. And so, during the initial transformation, of course, it was, it's rocky, right? People are unsure of the future with a brand new organization. And so there was a lot of, we had to really pay attention to our retention and our turnover. And so that's one that we're always looking at. The quality and safety metrics are always at the forefront, right? But I just wanted to speak to some of the ones that I've seen that have helped, again, directly related to transformation. And so, Yeah, I think, we're always going to, as healthcare leaders, we have our scorecards. We have the key performance indicators that we're always looking at. But yeah, the Glint survey has been my favorite. So.
Great. Diana, what indicators maybe have you really prioritized?
Yeah, so first I want to say I love that Glint survey twice a year. I think I'm going to steal that, so thank you, Meeta. We certainly don't do it quite so often, but I agree it would be really helpful in this kind of an environment, so I'm going to steal that tidbit myself. I think the important thing with metrics and indicators is not so much what it is for any initiative, but making sure that you define it ahead of time and that everyone understands what success is, what the measure is, and what success looks like. So, sometimes this plays out really obviously if you're talking about volume in an area, or if you're talking about turnover and how many employee terminations. You can count those very easily, but when you really get into the nuanced area, sometimes people have different perceptions. So I'll use length of stay. I think we all look at length of stay, for example, and we, like probably every organization on the planet, have a length of stay reduction initiative. I think we're all focused on this in some way, shape, or form. Well, come to find out, not everyone on the team really understood what the metric was. Everybody understands length of stay, but when you got one layer under the length of stay number, it was, well, wait, should we include behavioral health or not? Should we include maternal child health or not? Well, should we pull out the outliers? Oh, we should? Okay, well, what do we call the outliers? Is it more than 30 days, more than 60 days? And really having those conversations up front to be very clear. It almost doesn't matter what you decide on those things. It's really to make sure everybody knows what the definition is. And okay, we're going to focus on getting length of stay from this number to this number. We're going to include behavioral health. We're not going to include maternal child health, and we're going to exclude everyone who's been here longer than 120 days. But you could really make up any numbers as long as people know the specifics and they know what success looks like. Healthcare professionals tend to be very goal-driven and very A or fail. They want to do well, so they want to understand what well looks like. So I think the metric or indicator needs to be defined ahead of time, and it needs to be specific, and everyone on the team needs to understand it, almost more important than what individual metric or indicator you use.
Great. I want to make sure that we leave a little bit of time at the end for audience Q&A, so we're just going to jump to our last question before we get to the Q&A portion. We've been talking a lot about strategies, effective strategies that both of you have utilized. I want to kind of end on what is the one principle or practice that you feel is maybe most critical to sustaining success with a lot of these transformation efforts that we've been talking about today? Diana, is there one thing that you could pinpoint?
Yes, communication, 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 communication. You cannot communicate too often. You cannot communicate in too many different ways. And communication, by the way, bidirectional, you need to listen to. It's not just communicating out. You need to listen as well. But that communication is absolutely positively critical. It's important that everybody understands what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing on that initiative, that you're responding to feedback when things don't go as planned. And you can only do that through that constant communication. As we go through all of this change, it's hard for people. I think Meeta talked a lot about that. It's really challenging for the team. And if you are not constantly communicating so you can adjust both how you're leading, but also what the organization's response will be, you're never going to be successful. So communication, communication, communication.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Meeta, what would you say?
I would just echo that and say communication, communication. I'm just kidding. I'll add. So I totally agree. I would say it, leading as a human first. And I've said that previously, but we're in the business of people. So we talk so much about, and it's so important, strategy, technology, operations, all the things, but none of that happens without the people. And so, we're not going to have all of the answers, and that's difficult. And especially, in an environment like the one that I'm in currently, right? And we're kind of recovering from, and we've done a great job, but for so long the team didn't have access to even just some of the basic things, right? And so making sure that we're showing that we're supporting, that we're making the right investments in them and our patients. And again, just making sure that we're continuing to be there for them and transparent and bringing them updates. Again, we had to get our team to, let go of a place of, familiarity and embrace uncertainty. And so, again, we have to keep remembering that the transformation isn't just happening to processes, it's happening to the people. And so, yeah, leading as a human first and recognizing that is critical.
Great. That'll wrap up our discussion. Thank you both again for a great presentation, great discussion. This now brings us to our Q&A portion, where please, audience members, you can send in some questions and we will ask our great panelists here to answer them for you. Someone had asked, Meeta, you were talking about the survey earlier. They may have missed the name of it, as they just were asking if you could reiterate what that survey was and why it's been effective for you.
Oh, absolutely. So it's called the GLINT. So it's GLINT. So we use that throughout Orlando Health, and it is remarkable. And so it's a very quick survey for our team. It also has the opportunity for them to place or write comments for every different category that we're asking about. And so I feel like that's just been something where we can make really tangible changes. And again, I think it's twice a year is enough, right? It kind of rolls around fast, but it gives us just enough time to have clear actions and be able to follow up.
Great. And just a reminder to the audience, again, if you want to submit a question, click on the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen. It may be open already and appear on the left side of your screen. Please note your questions will remain anonymous and will not be viewed by other audience members. So please send in those questions. We have another one here. Someone asked, are either of your organizations HRO? I'm assuming that they're talking about high reliability organizations, or on that journey? And if so, how has that impacted or helped your transformation efforts? Diana, could you take this one to start?
Yeah, so the original community hospital was in fact very much and very far along a high reliability journey. What's been and I should say it had really amazing success in terms of quality improvements and quality metrics, and really, really proud of the work that had happened over several years. And so came into the acquisition of the other two hospitals in a really strong quality position. The two hospitals that were brought on that were part of the Extord network had some principles of quality built in, but honestly, as things had deteriorated there, metrics had slipped, the focus was really more on the basics, day-to-day block and tackle urgent issues, and less on really looking at driving systemic quality improvement. So a real opportunity there. What's been interesting is the lessons that we kind of had learned in the original former Lawrence General Hospital were really helpful in structuring that work. But what's been, sort of a learning experience for us, we had to revisit some of the things that were really hardwired at a single community hospital, because suddenly when you're talking about a system, you're talking about a process or a policy that was written for one organization, and now you're trying to just pick it up and plop it into another organization, and everything from the types of equipment to who does what role and what responsibility on the team was different. And so we've actually had to go back and revisit some of the things that were hardwired into the organization already, because now that we're thinking with a system mentality, that has changed. So it's been incredibly helpful, but you might think, oh, that's great, you can just pick it up here and plop it there and it will work great. And actually it's been having to revisit the whole.
And Meeta, can you also take this question? Are you on an HRO journey with your organization, and how has that impacted efforts, transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're most definitely on the journey towards high reliability. And again, when you think about HRO and becoming that, right, it's really linked to building a culture where people feel safe to speak up, where we learn from failures and near misses. And again, where safety becomes everyone's responsibility. And I do have a strong example of that. So something that we've been doing, we've been really looking at our patient safety and risk reporting infrastructure. So I'll talk through a few things that we've done specifically. So we've redesigned how we execute on our daily safety briefings that occur every single morning. And so again, the focus and revamp really was on making sure that our leaders, as we went through and reported, and it wasn't just for nursing, we also have a section for physician leadership, and we also have a section for all of allied health support services, quality reports, risk reports. So it's really all encompassing, and it's quick because we've gotten really great being efficient with our reporting. But we always start with, are there any safety events that occurred in the previous 24 hours? And do we anticipate any safety events occurring in the next upcoming 24 hours, right? And so we keep that at the forefront, and we make sure some of the operational details, again, we report on some of that because we do need to know operational updates within the facility, but we always start with the safety. And then if there's anything that needs to be followed up on, we make sure to take note of that, and all of that's communicated out daily. So I think that's really helped us. We've also, from a risk perspective, we've spent a lot of time evaluating how we conduct root cause analyses. So we make sure that we have the right people at the table. We engage our frontline team that was closest to the work or maybe even involved. And how we accomplished that successfully was that we created a psychologically safe environment for them to feel safe and comfortable speaking to things, because we're not going to have a successful or effective RCA if we don't create that environment. So across Orlando Health, we actually had training for creating psychologically safe environments. So that's really helped us. And then really to loop close all of this, we have a governance structure that's site specific and regional for where we have, it's a patient safety committee. And so things, anything that we need to report up through regional gets reported. And then those examples get shared at a system level as well for learning. So we create some of that systemness and example sharing, again, across each facility. So that's been very effective for us. Again, on our journey to HRO, but that's where we create that sustainability and transformation.
Great. That's all the time we have for questions today. Remember to follow along all week for continued coverage on enterprise transformation leadership by visiting our website at healthleadersmedia.com. I want to thank once again Meeta Gandhi and Diana Richardson for an excellent discussion today. And thank you to you and our audience for participating. We hope you enjoyed today's program and look forward to seeing you in future sessions as well. The Winning Edge will be back in a couple weeks. Please look out for that on our website and to find the registration link. This concludes today's program. Thank you very much.